Well, my friends, we finally got the Bidens. We have the smoking gun everybody's been waiting for 40 years. The Bidens have immediately released their 2023 tax returns just after the tax due date yesterday, and they earned $620,000 in 2023. Now, most of you are probably saying, what's the smoking gun? How does this connect to criminal bribery and influence peddling and selling access to or influence to China and Ukraine and whoever for tens of millions of dollars? Well, the answer is, of course, that it doesn't. And I want to take this opportunity to kind of go through some of what we would expect and some of what we might not expect when it comes to our elected officials. Now, I think as a starting point, it's important to remember we continue to see complete and total upfront, here's what it is, honesty and transparency from the Bidens, which, think what you will about their $620,000 2023 combined income, is a very different paradigm from what we've seen from the other candidate this time around, Donald Trump, who, after promising and hemming and hawing, depending on if and what happens with audits, this, that, and the other thing, has only, to the extent that we've seen tax returns, it's only because they've been released by other parties. So Biden's released tax return show they made almost $620,000 in 2023. Yes, this puts them in the 1%. But where do you expect them to be when Joe Biden's presidential salary is $400,000? And the instinct that I think is important to resist here is the instinct to say, see, Biden, Trump, it's all the same. They're just rich guys at the end of the day. This is like the Bernie is a millionaire controversy, which I've talked about before and maybe I'll address again. Presidents make $400,000. Jill Biden made $85,000 teaching. Because of their age, they get pension distributions and Social Security benefits to the tune of $34,000 in pensions and $54,000 in joint Social Security benefits. That's it. So on the one hand, we have the epic simplicity of it's April 15th and we're putting out the information. We earn salaries. We have Social Security benefits we're entitled to because we paid into them. It's April 16th and we're already discussing it, and it's essentially an open and shut story. By the way, $400,000 to be effectively the leader of the free world. Sort of interesting in a way, and there are those who think it should be an unpaid position, and there are those who believe it should be much better compensated. We're not going to have that debate today. On the other hand, there really is no comparison to Donald Trump's situation, who, although he is not nearly as wealthy as he has claimed to be, $4, $5, $6 billion, doesn't seem like it. He's probably a billionaire and has extensive real estate holdings, highly leveraged and using financial instruments in order to use. By the way, this is what was the core of the New York fraud trial, using very shaky and unsubstantiated property values in order to secure loans against those properties. Completely and totally different situation. But what I step back to, and this applies to the Bernie's a millionaire thing, what I step back to is, what is the policy that they are advocating? If I look at the worldview and the policy package of a Bernie Sanders and a Joe Biden and a Donald Trump, yes, Trump is way wealthier than them, but putting aside the idea that wealth disqualifies you from having good policy ideas, and it doesn't. Mark Cuban, as an example, is extremely wealthy, recently was saying, hey, I'm about to cut a $280 million check to the IRS for my taxes. I get stuff from the country. I'm proud to pay it. It's what I owe. You can be a really wealthy guy like Cuban and still appear to have good policy ideas and the concerns of the average American in mind. So yeah, Bernie's in his 80s and he's a millionaire. And if you've been earning six figures for decades and you're 80 and you're not a millionaire, you've done something wrong. I've done the math before. Bernie's been making six figures for decades. If you just put away 15% of your income for 40 years and it appreciates at 7% annually, which is the stock market average, and you own a property and you've gotten a little bit of an inheritance, which I think Bernie's wife got, you're going to be a millionaire. It would be more shocking. I would question Bernie's financial acumen if he weren't a millionaire at 80 years old, having made six figures for decades. So the point here is you can be wealthy or not, and have ideas that are good for the majority or not. And so $620,000 income for the Bidens, given that $400,000 is the presidential salary, not concerning, not evidence that these are all just rich guys unconcerned with the average American. And Biden has done a lot of good things that Donald Trump would not have done. So we can now close the book. It's April 16th. We're done with the Biden's income for 2023. And maybe at some point we'll find out something about Trump's income in 2023. It is time to start thinking like voters and to make sure that kids understand the importance of voting, how it works, registering, ballot initiatives, because so many kids just have no idea. That's why I wrote the new children's book, Think Like a Voter. I can think of no better time and no more important group of folks to try to reach. The book is now available at davidpakman.com/book, where, by the way, you can get the first 2 books in the series as well. Think Like a Detective and Think Like a Scientist. Really important stuff. Donate them to local libraries, classrooms, read them with the kids. davidpakman.com/book.